James, does the term deja vu mean anything to you?
Full disclosure, friends. Um, 3 years ago, we think 2 to 3 years, or maybe 2 years
Yeah.
ago.
We're still trying to find it or find that
It
date.
doesn't exist. So we'll say two. 2 years ago, we recorded this episode. We vividly remember it. So I'm having kind of flashbacks of the Rob Darden situation. If you remember
Oh, yeah.
that one, the last episode.
The lost episode. Yep.
Yeah. So we lost it.
Yeah.
And so if you're watching our Seven Habits series in any kind of order, like a normal order, 1 through 7, you'll probably see us, I don't know, we're aging
Different.
normally. And then,
I'm now in the studio.
yeah, we're way more professional now. We have cold opens. How about that? You know, we've evolved as a show, but the truth is that we lost that episode. And so we're back. And we're pretty pumped because we're stepping back into the 7 habits. Not that we ever left, but as far as the podcast goes, Jimmy,
Yeah.
and we really enjoyed this series when we first kind of came up with the idea of bringing this to the podcast.
Yeah.
We were I don't know, kind of pushing the envelope a little bit in the space that we were in, and it was received so well at the time that being able to step back into it now, both of us kind of woke up pretty pumped to do it today.
I agree. And James, I've said this before, but you're a guru when it comes to 7 habits, and you've helped me and continue to help me on my journey. And I mean that sincerely, that every time that we get together, every time we get together and talk about these, I always learn something. This one today, though, is very special to me because everybody that knows me knows that I am what's the word I'm looking for? I would say a champion or a herald our relationships in the industry. And when you have positive relationships in the industry, what are a lot of those relating to? Meaning like win-wins in our relationship.
You're always looking for that win-win, right?
That falls right into this 7 habit number 4, if I'm correct.
Habit 4, think win-win. And Jimmy, you know this because we've been in a lot of these together. You and I actually have taught this one before.
We have.
That internally, this is part of the professional development that we provide to our employees is within the 7 habits. And so we try to live by these the best to our abilities, right? So we've got to teach this internally before, and so I don't know. It's a special one for me. It's one of the first of 2 that I taught. Period. So, within the organization, it was one of my first moments to be able to teach anything was habit 4, and so it has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, and mine too, because it was one of the first ones that I got to co-present or co-facilitate with you. And again, out of all of them, I herald all the 7 habits, but this one, again, for me personally, with my passion and purpose, I live this each and every day, and I have lived it. And it's neat to see how you can take the things that you do organically and then kind of hone them and then move them and shape them. So
love it. Well, let's get into it, Jimmy.
Please.
I'm going to give a little bit of a pregame to Habit 4 because it's kind of a weird portion of the book where, if you're familiar with it, and you know me, man, I have the old one and the new one, but a lot of people have the new one, so the page numbers are different. So I'm not going to talk in page numbers, but the book is broken up into really 2 parts, which is the private victory and the public victory. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. If you're walking through this yourself, you remember the private victory, the first 3 habits are things we have to settle with ourselves, right? We have to become proactive. We have to follow those things, right? Yes. And so we have to get our house in order before we go deal with the public, is what I like to say, right?
Yeah.
So before we have a party, we like clean our house obsessively, right? Kind of like that. So we got to get ourselves right in the private victory. And then this habit is the first habit. Habit 4 is the first habit in the public victory, right? So now we've learned all this, we've set ourselves up for success, but now we go out in the real world. And one of the
Yep.
things I always like to say in the real world is that if you've made it through the private victory, you are more skilled than probably 95% of the public out there. Because let's be honest, Jimmy, you may be blessed. You may have seen Seven Habits before you came to EWN. You may have seen it in business. You may have been through the book before at another organization, but a
I
lot
was.
of folks have not. Um, and so the first time they pick up this book, before that, they have no knowledge of what you have to get right with yourself, right? They haven't went through this like you are. And so a lot of us take that for granted that when we look around, we think everyone should be as skilled as we are. And the truth is the mass majority of the public that you deal with is unskilled in this particular thing, right?
Right. Yep. Can I ask you a question to build on that? You talked about that, the private victories, the first three and going on. Is this something that you would tell folks that you read the book once, you got it, put the book away, don't worry about it again? Or is this a continuing
Yeah, it's
going back and
continuous
honing?
improvement, right? If you do it right, that's part of it, right? We got to
Okay.
cycle back through it. I keep it, and we just joked about this, right? How upset was I a minute ago because I didn't have my Seven Habit books
You
within
thought it was
reach?
at the other office. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what my other copy is, but this one, this is the one, right? This is so, Jimmy. I think we're all friends here. We can talk like this too. There's a lot of people when things aren't going right. What book do they pick up? Let's be honest. What book do they pick up? You can say, what book do you pick up in your life when things are
When
not
things aren't going well, I pick up the Bible.
absolutely right? And I think that is what a lot of people would say. And I think that is
Yep.
totally fair. In business, this is kind of that type of thing. Now, you should still pick up your Bible. I'm just saying, but this, you know, this is kind of that thing. It's a reference book because honestly, you're going to make mistakes. You're dealing with a public that is unskilled in these ways a lot of the time, right? They haven't been through
Right.
Seven Habits. They're not reading it today. They're not doing a podcast about it. It's top of mind for us. And when that's what the public victory is. Now we got to go take it and apply it to our relationships. We've got to apply it to our teams. We have to
Right.
apply it to our friends and our family. And the truth is your uncle, your brother-in-law, your sister is not reading Seven Habits today, right? She's not doing a podcast about it. And so the sooner you realize that that you really got to get your house in order because that's about all you can control with confidence, right? And so as you go out into the public, how do we it seems really simple to us say, well, we want to achieve a win-win, obviously.
Right.
We're not all minded the same. We don't all have these skills. And so when we go out there, some people are, you know what they're shooting for? Win loss, because all they've done is play basketball their whole life, or all they've done is work in an environment that was so competitive that that is what you went after. And the truth is that we prosper more when we live in a win-win environment. And that's what this chapter's about. And so this little middle part in between chapter 3 and 4, it's kind of a real cool part, and it brings up one of the neatest things in the book to me, and that is the emotional bank account. And Jimmy, you and I have talked about it. We joke about it a little bit. I forget the joke you used to say all the time. You had a bit when I would say emotional bank account, and you would go out. What is it you call
Oh,
it? Yeah, you would say something and make fun of me, but it's such an easy concept to wrap your brain around. And I think we take it for granted. And
unpack it, man.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
let
So it's real simple. Think of a piggy bank. You put money in, you take money out as you need it, right? That type of thing, a bank account. But when you're talking about relationships, so Jimmy, you and I,
Yep.
let's go back. We did not know each other. There was a point when we did not know each other, right? Maybe 6, 7 years ago, somewhere in there. We didn't even know each other existed in any capacity, right? So we have not shared banking information. We're not making any deposits. We're not, pulling money out. We're not doing anything, right? No relationship. Fast forward, we meet each other, right? And I'm going to go back to that. We kind of met each other online. We both connected on LinkedIn. We kind of, uh, hey, might see you here, or hey, I'm going to be at this next event. And then we saw each other. We already had made positive deposits in each other's the relationship, the emotional bank account, right?
Right.
We said, hey, you're doing great things on LinkedIn. Keep up the deal. We didn't know each other. We were just being champions, making deposits. We see each other for the first time. We sit down. We actually learn about each other. We figure out what each other's whys are, and what is that? We're making deposits, right? All right. Fast forward, day comes. Jimmy, you're friends with us. Our organization is really close. And someone says, what do you think about Jim Shower? We didn't work together. But what does my mind do? I go to that bank account and it's all positive, right? Just deposits, deposits, deposits. And I'm like, I know exactly how he operates. I sat down with him, and boom, boom, boom. In a way, you didn't know it, but you were making a withdrawal out of that. Like you were pulling from that. And because of all that positive balance that we had accumulated, it was no big deal to me. Like, boom, done. Now, in other ways, you can do that. Think of it in a negative way. Think of a relationship, whoever you are, wherever you are, whoever's listening. We all have. Someone is withdrawn and withdrawn and withdrawn and withdrawn and withdrawn.
Overdraft.
Right, overdraft. Now it's
Right.
how it is. We've all been
Yeah.
there. Insufficient funds, right? It takes a lot to get back to just, how it is. I mean, then the next thing bounces, and then we got another insufficient fund. Now we're way in the hole, right? To get back to where we can just function takes time, right?
Right.
A lot of work, a lot of diligent effort, a lot of intentionality. And so curating and really working those relationships allows you to keep that positive. We don't want to make withdrawals, but sometimes we need to, right? Sometimes life makes us do it, but sometimes it's hey, I really need to get into, talk with these people. I really want them as clients, in some situations. Sometimes it's, man, I need your vote for this, or, hey, I need your backing. I need your corporate sponsorship here. We don't know what it is, but if we're holding the door for folks and we're doing the good work and we're making those deposits every day, and it can be the smallest thing. Jimmy, one of my favorite examples is when I got to EWN, I didn't know a soul.
Right.
I was scared to death. I came from in the whole industry, I didn't know a soul. And I started by doing little things. I was known. I would go out and with umbrellas and walk people in when it was raining. Like, luckily, our office was under construction and we were moving desks all the time. You know what I can do? I can move desks. And people were so thankful for that. But I was making these deposits without anybody. There was no ulterior motive. It was just the right thing to do, right? So when the time came and it was like, no, man, he's good. He means right. He does well, right? Like, I mean, it's so simple, so simple.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. And it really puts it in perspective into a real life example of how we
Yeah.
do and don't do that. And now just the realization being consciously competent into that aspect. That's interesting.
Yeah. So little things are the big things. That's a big takeaway for me, an emotional bank account. And I'll give people, I think they're in the book, but 6 ways that you can make deposits that I think they're just so simple if you think about it. So number one, we just said it, Jimmy. Some of these will just be able to just tie straight to the stories we tell, but understanding the individual, right? So
Sure.
sitting down with them, Jim, you and I sat down. That's how our relationship started, right? Was understanding the why behind it. What you walked away from it. Tell me more about that. Hey, tell me, you're sober. What happened? Like those types of things. That's understanding. It's a deeper understanding. Boom, deposits. All right. But I just said it. The little things are the big things. You don't think it makes a difference holding the door, asking somebody if they need a glass of water? Like
Yeah.
those types
Moving the
of
desk,
things
use an
happen.
umbrella. Yep. Yep.
Do it. Do it because it's so easy. It's so easy to do. This one, I love just honoring and keeping your commitments, right?
That's
Do what
huge
you
though.
say.
That's
Do what you
huge.
say. And if you
Yeah.
can't, um, make sure they understand it, right? Like how much that it hurts not to keep that commitment. And part of that commitment is don't overcommit by clarifying those commitments, right? Sometimes we do that, right? We raise our
Right.
hand, we do whatever that is, whatever the
It's hard to
thing.
say no at times. It's hard to say no, right?
Absolutely. And so, being comfortable to clarify that, paint
Yeah,
done for me, we say from Brene Brown. Um, I love this one, and I think our industry loves this one, is
definitely.
just having integrity, right?
Yeah.
Personal integrity,
Yeah.
showing it.
Your
When I
personal
do,
brand.
yeah, and
I
when I
like
step in it, I let people know that that's kind of the wraparound of it all is apologizing sincerely when we do have to make a negative. Like when we know we stepped in it, when we know something was not done right, that we feel comfortable enough to apologize because sometimes those apologies in that withdrawal are bigger than the withdrawal, right? So
can
you
offset
can
the
swing
withdrawal.
that account
Could be a
absolutely,
deposit, could be
and
a net gain.
I'll go on that just real quick. Is some of the biggest deposits come from the most unsavory situations,
Sure.
like living
Yep.
through some of that stuff and being able to come with your hat in your hand. Like those moments are huge. So dude, that's all free of charge. It's like tailgating habit 4. It's not even in habit 4 yet, but it's such a big part of moving into that public victory that I hate to just skim over it. So we always cover it when we're talking about it. But we are talking about think win-win today, Jim. You said it's so important in business. Um, it's so important in life is I think the thing. You think about this being a business book, but it's called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, not business people, not workers, not employees, not leaders. It's about living their life. We can't
In
forget
all
that.
aspects, every
Yeah.
avenue, family, friends, neighbors, church,
Yeah. You ever been in a win-loss situation in life that wasn't involving business?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. You ever
Yeah.
been in a lose-lose where
Oh
both
yeah.
sides? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like these are all real things. It doesn't have to be just in the setting or at the conference table, right?
That's an important aspect, James, because this isn't something you turn on and turn off. It's either you're it's on your journey, your brand, your person journey through everything, right? And
Absolutely.
and be quite honest, I learned from both sides of it, from the personal side or the business side in relating to these.
Yeah, I think it's harder to enact the change in our personal lives personally. Like I mean, coming from my viewpoint,
Sure.
it's a lot easier. I can go to work and then turn that off and go, I ain't got to see this person anymore today. Like that's the truth. If I have to make hard or things, there's especially if you're talking not even within your organization, but you're talking third party type of thing. That's easy, right? I may not see that person again this year. Like I'm just saying it right or wrong, it it it's easier to apply these things business, but it's harder to wrap your brain around that really they're about being a better person, being a
Yeah.
more effective person, right? Not better,
Sure.
that sounds bad. So
Sure.
let's get into it, Jimmy. Let's talk about a little bit of they call them the 6 paradigms of human interaction, but really it's we're trying to get to a win-win, right?
That's the top. That's the
But
ultimate.
but
That should
let's
be the norm.
yeah, but let's talk about the other things and win-win, right? Let's kind of break down the different ones. And I've got a little cheat sheet here, so I'm kind of reading, so don't judge me. But let's start with win-win, right? We love these. Right? We think about partnerships. We think about doing business in the industry. These are These are the top of the top. You think about the best deals you've ever done, salespeople. You think about the best partnerships work you've ever done to our channel partners out there. You think about some of those. That one's easy to see in your mind, right? I think we all have those. Those are mutually beneficial and satisfying to both sides.
The
Right?
ultimate.
Both,
That's my goal each and every day.
yeah, right. And we all have that example to go to. So let's keep that as the North Star. That's what we're talking about. So now
Gotcha.
let's shift into a win-loss, right? So this one's let me kind of read it by definition and then we'll talk about it a little bit. But this one might use position or power or credentials or personality to get their own way, right? So now do you paint that? Do you see that? Who's that person? What's that relationship? What's that
Yep.
deal that we're talking about? It's going to be harder. I can't like I'll give you examples of my own when I feel them, but everybody's going to have that example, right?
Yeah.
You've either been on one side or the other, and either way, it feels dirty, right? So win loss, but it's a very real thing in business. I can think of current relationships and things like that is the situation, but it is one that we're working through, right? And it makes you not want those necessarily, but there are some that you have to have, right? So it is what it is, right? Now let's flip it. Now we could have a lose win. So now we're on the other side of it, right? So these two are the same, right? We just kind of talked about it. But think about yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe you're quick to please, appease. Maybe it's popularity or acceptance. Like I'll just take the L, right? If I
Yeah.
can be in the group, or I'll vote no if that's what it takes. Like it does. Again, we're talking about those two. They're interchangeable. You're either on one side or the other, and we know what that feels like. It's very clear, right, in our minds what it feels like losing and what it feels like
Yeah.
winning when that's the only two options. We've been on the team. We've done the things. All right, now let's talk about lose lose. Now this one's weird, right? Like, why would you be in anything that was a lose lose? Now,
Yeah.
think about it though. Have you ever been in one, relationship wise? Have you ever been in one, business wise, where you're like, why are we doing this? And you're thinking, we, they're killing us over there. And probably on the other side, the other business, the other partner, the other relationship, the client, whatever is over there going, this is
And,
terrible.
and
Both parties are
yeah.
so disconnected or so stubborn, right?
Right. But in my mind too, I've been in those situations where the lose lose isn't the same. A lose on this side might be
Looks different. Yeah,
something. Lose on this side is different. They're not
absolutely.
the same, but they're still a lose.
Yep. And
Yeah.
it's a weird one.
Yeah.
You might be thinking the other it's a disconnect, right? So it's usually built on stubbornness a lot of the time. Like well, that's just what we did business. It's just got to be like that type of thing. And then we have wins. And sometimes we give up wins, just, don't necessarily want someone else to lose. Like, I see this more within teams, like enablement almost. Like it feels like it's a win on paper, but it's really more of just not a loss. It's a checkbox. It's
Okay.
we say it in our industry. Sometimes, they're just trying to get the checkbox, or they're just checking the box, that type of thing. That's it may look like a win on paper, but it's really just not a
Is this
loss.
is this throwing floor mats in with a new car where you
Yeah, it's
don't about the whole thing, but
oh
you
yeah,
got
man, they're free. Yeah, you
yeah.
ever
Okay.
said that? Yeah, but it's a free service, is it?
Yeah.
Man, it seems really expensive. Now the last one I really love, because I've been there, and I hope some other people can put this one in their mind too, and that's no deal. Okay, so sometimes this is an amazing solution. And I can go back to so many times in my life when I've been honest with a potential client in business, not even in this realm, all realm, and said, look, guys, I'm going to be really honest. This doesn't support our goals right now. And man, we want to serve you. But if we serve you, we're not going to be serving us. And I hope you respect that enough that when the time's right, that we can talk about this again, right? And I've been there, and you hate
Yep.
it, but it's the truth. And there's we're not going to dance around it. We're not going to waste time. I'm not going to waste your time. And we put a bow on it and put a pin in it. And then we say, we'll come back one day. And honestly, 9 times out of 10 in those situations, I've come back and got the business, made the deal, made it right, whatever it looked like. We were able to serve down the road, or I was able to serve depending on the situation, right? So I think that one's huge and very underrated. When you can't get a win win, that's our ultimate. It's not a negotiation, it is a win win. Like both parties are winning. If it feels like you're negotiating or compromising down, then someone's losing, right? It could be both. It could be one. And sometimes in those, when it feels like everybody's losing, stepping back and saying no deal is an option just
Yeah.
for permission, I think is very important.
I think you could unpack that one on a whole session itself.
I tell you what, it's a neat one, and I think super underrated. But Jimmy, it's a great chapter. It's kind of short in the meat of it because really it's based around what we just talked about.
Yeah.
But I think just to kind of put a bow on this, we should talk just real quick about like what win-win looks like, and because he kind of breaks it down into some different areas, and I just want to speed through those, and then I
Do
think
it.
we've done it justice. Um,
Absolutely. Do it.
all right, so we're shooting for a win-win. What does it look like? What are they call it? I think the 5 dimensions of a win-win. So we're going to talk about character first. Like, what does it look like? 3 essential traits when we talk about character and win-win: integrity, maturity, and abundance mentality. We've used abundance mentality a lot with this show, Jimmy.
Yeah.
And we there's enough to go around, man. Let's all get at the table, right? So that's huge. So if it doesn't look like that, is it a win-win, right? Are you compromising one of those 3? Is it one of those, where one's slipping? Really evaluate that. The relationship. Remember the emotional bank account. What's the
Oh,
balance
yeah.
look like?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you get to trust, right? You get a high emotional bank account. I can trust you, right? So, how do we build relationships that look like that? Let's look at our agreements. Remember, they need to be clear. In the book, he talks about green and clean with his son. What does the lawn need to be? What are the rules? It needs to be green and clean. That's the only rules. So no trash, and it needs to be green. How do you get it there? That's your job, right? Don't overmanage. Just make sure your agreements are super clear. Build support systems that make sense. Going back to the green and clean story, what does he say? He says, I work for you. What? Like, I work for you. Let me make sure that I can help you get there. I want you to win, but you have to tell me. I can't come to you as your employee and say, hey, are we going to get it green and clean every Tuesday, right? That's your job. You ask me, hey, I need some help getting it clean. I'll be there, right? So make attractive support systems, right? The last one is processes. Remember, we're trying to be effective. And so our processes have to be effective. We have to change our mindset. And the next 2 habits, 5 and 6, will be our guide to get there, right? If we don't have the processes, we can't be effective people. Remember, processes are efficient, people are effective. And that's it.
James, once again, you have inspired me to go back and relook at some things that you have sparked today. And by doing that, I'm grateful to you. And I hope some people in the audience have done the same thing, that they want to just go back and review, refresh, hone, take a look more.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it's worth your time. It's worth your investment. Hey, if you want to dig into this more, let us know. We have a professional development suite that'll get you there. I promise you that. I'm not trying to sell anything. It's a win-win. Look at that. All right. Hey, we
Beautiful.
appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Happy 7 habits. Hunting.